Good morning. Good morning. How's everybody doing? All right. My name is Devereaux McClatchey, and I'm proud to serve as president of Carney Sando & Associates. I'm really excited to welcome you all here to our third annual Diversity Forum. You know, this event has continued to grow in size and in scope, and when we arrived at the hotel yesterday, we were thrilled to learn that all the various leaders of the Republican Party, and even our president, Mr. Trump, they had all decided to come to Philadelphia, to this hotel, to attend our Diversity Forum. Now, I don't see them here right at the moment. They're probably grabbing some coffee. But when they pop in, will you please let Mr. Trump know that he actually left his speech lying on the floor of the ballroom yesterday, and I have it right here. And I'm not kidding. Here it is. What a beautiful irony, isn't it? This is not the speech I plan to give. And while Dr. West hasn't shared with us his remarks ahead of time, my guess is that his message will veer in just a slightly different direction than the president's. So I'm fortunate to know a number of school heads, many of them here, and immediately following the election, it was fascinating to listen to them perseverate about whether they should write some sort of letter to their school communities about the election, and if so, what it should say. A few took unabashedly strong stands, but most, cognizant of the various political affiliations among their school communities, took apolitical approaches. They stressed the need to listen, to respect all sides, to engage in civic affairs, to honor our political traditions, etc. Were I a school head, I might try to toe that line as well. But fortunately, I'm not. And frankly, if you're involved in education in any capacity, regardless of party, how could you not be totally appalled by the wholesale failure of the Trump campaign to address the topic of education in any way for 18 months on the trail? Education, it seemed, ranked dead last for Trump, behind the size of his hands, small, the size of his crowds, small, or the size of his attention span, teeny weeny. Many of you in the room right now are teachers, and to you, let me say, there is no more important job in this country, in this world, than what you're doing. Our theme this year, Allies in Action, Pushing for Progress in Our Communities, was based on the idea that we want our work here together to elicit both reflection and action. And as important as protests are, and marches and political rallies of all stripes, in my view, there is nothing more galvanizing than teachers who reach their students and help them see things differently. And when someone sees things differently, everything changes. As Gil Scott Heron wrote in his original version of The Revolution Will Not Be Televised, the first revolution is when you change your mind about how you look at things and see that there might be another way to look at it that you have not been shown. What you see later on is the result of that, but that revolution, that change that takes place, will not be televised. You, the teachers, are the revolution agents, and even if you're not screaming with the pitchfork in your classroom, just by modeling empathetic behavior and by helping your students feel inspired and cared for and challenged and listened to, you're laying the groundwork for far more ambitious change than we ever will with our protests. And while I know it's of the moment or of the decade to highlight the importance of science and math for our students, and indeed they are critical, let me just send out a special shout out to all you English teachers, you social study teachers, you history teachers, you civic teachers. Shakespeare's Richard III explains this recent election and its aftermath better than any pundit ever could. Volker Ulrich's recent biography of Hitler's rise to power in the 30s is shockingly prescient. The philosopher Richard Rorty's book, Achieving Our Country, written 30 years ago, predicted this stunning turn of events as if he had a crystal ball. And Dr. Cornel West, here in this room, here with us today, I can tell you that as his student back at Harvard Divinity School 19 years ago, he was a constant prophet in the classroom, totally inspiring and provocative to me. It seemed to me that his entire raison d'etre was to help students, in the words of Gil Scott-Heron, change their minds about how they look at things. And of course, don't get me wrong, the marches and political rallies are exceedingly important. Many of us at Carney Sando were proud to march in Boston last weekend. My wife helped me keep track of some of our favorite signs. They included, "I've seen smarter cabinets at IKEA." "Put avocado on racism so white people notice." "Eve was framed." "I'm 90, I'm nasty, and I'm not giving up." "Diversity is what makes America great." "Super callous, fascist, racist, extra braggadocious." "Thou shalt not mess with women's reproductive rights." Fallopians 121. At this point, I'd like to switch gears and share a story. And I hope you all share stories today, particularly at our town hall session this afternoon. The summer after college, I worked as a dishwasher and a busboy at a resort up in Vermont. Dinners were served family style in an old yellow barn. Sometimes bats would swoop down right above the tables. One night, I was clearing all the plates, and I noticed that one of the guests, a tall, lanky African-American man, had started to play the old upright piano on the other side of the barn. He was wearing a red corduroy coat and a black fleece hat with earmuffs. He seemed to just be noodling around, jazz style, sort of lost in his own thoughts. I could hear him humming and sort of grunting as he played. I finished clearing the tables and was about to leave when I noticed Alicia, one of the women who worked at the front desk, walk into the barn. She was from the Philippines, maybe 20 years old, and tiny in every way. She wore huge round glasses that were way too big for her face, and she kept her hair in pigtails. We had met a handful of times, but she was extremely shy, so I really knew nothing about her. I regarded her as timid, even meek, someone who just did her job and very much kept to herself. She walked up behind the man playing the piano and just watched him for a bit. Then she began to sing. As soon as she sang the first word was amazing, it dawned on me that the piano player had been playing around with different versions of Amazing Grace the entire time. Alicia's voice was full and strong and utterly mesmerizing. She sounded like Jennifer Hudson. I was shocked. She put her hand on the piano player's shoulder, and he started singing also. His voice was soft and husky and beautiful, and he made the piano sound like it was 3 different instruments all at once. I remember most clearly their singing of the second verse. By this point, I had shuffled over next to them, dumbstruck and out of my body, like I was watching some trippy heavenly dream. I also noticed that I had started to cry, convulsively. I had never cried like that in my life. Alicia took my hand and kept singing. "'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed." They sang all 7 stanzas together, and then it was over. Alicia turned to me and said, "You really like that music. I'm so surprised." Surprised, I thought. Why? What was it about me, about the way that I looked, that would make her think I didn't like music? Alicia and the man playing the piano had, as it turned out, never met one another. He was a lawyer who lived in Virginia. I was surprised by that. I had him pegged as a sort of New York City jazz guy or a preacher. The 3 of us ended up hanging out in the barn for a long time that night, and we learned a lot about each other. It was definitely a night I'll never forget, and one that I often think of when I notice in myself my propensity to judge, to label, to assume. This is now our 3rd diversity forum here in Philadelphia, and as we've said the last 2 years, we don't pretend to be experts, but we feel like we know some people who are. So the best we can do is reach out and invite those folks to join us and educate us and help us see things we might not see. You have a terrific honorary faculty with you here today, down here in the first couple rows. And each one of these 19 folks has graciously agreed to not only serve on the professional development panels throughout the day, but also to engage privately with you about any questions you may have, or even to serve as a mentor. We hope that you will take the initiative to engage with them, both here today and moving forward in the future. We hope to create an environment where folks feel encouraged to share and even to be vulnerable. The more stories we can share with one another, the more insecurities that can come out, the more we can be there to support one another and find ways to coalesce and move forward. I can tell you that I personally harbor a number of insecurities with respect to my being here before you today and with my interest in diversity work in general. To start with, vocabulary. I know that language around this line of work is constantly evolving, so I worry about using words that are not appropriate or that inadvertently imply messages that I don't mean to imply. Even the name of our event, Diversity Forum, represents, by some accounts, an anachronistic term or an unhelpful term. So if we can't even name our event properly, what can we do? I also feel a certain degree of insecurity about being white and privileged and speaking to you up here on this stage. I worry that I might be perceived as trying to suggest that I have any particular insight or expertise to offer. And I think we can all agree that there's very little that is more off-putting than when someone purports to be an expert and tell you what to do when they actually don't know what they're talking about, or when they haven't done the work they're asking you to do themselves. A couple of years ago, I gave a workshop with my colleague, Ada McElroy, yo Ada, at a conference here in Chicago. Not here in Chicago, in Chicago. Chicago, Philadelphia. Our topic was about recruitment of faculty of color. Ada and I did a great deal of preparation together, and we felt really good about how the workshop went. So I was pretty surprised to read one of the feedback forms that was submitted by one of the participants. Asked to rate the workshop between a 1 to 5, with 5 being the best, this person gave us a 1. The comment read, verbatim, "There is no doubt that McClatchey and McElroy know a great deal about recruiting faculty of color but I did not appreciate being beaten over the head about doing more. We are a small school, and we're already doing the best that we can. This was a great learning experience for us, and one that we do not take lightly as we continue to work with schools on these issues. Overall, we can say that we all harbor insecurities and experiences of otherness, no matter what our race or gender or religion or sexual orientation. But we also know that the more we can create spaces to bring those feelings to the fore, the more progress we will make. 3 years ago at our annual Placement Group Summit, we added the very simple phrase, "enter the conversation," as one of our core concepts. We felt that it was our responsibility as stewards and advocates for schools and teachers to be more aware and involved in the various conversations in and around education, including those conversations related to social justice, race, equity, and inclusion. With this diversity forum, and also with our inaugural Women's Institute coming up this summer, we think we're entering that conversation, or better yet, facilitating hundreds of conversations about how we can collectively share and move forward. We're very fired up for this day, for Dr. West, for the privilege of getting to know you, and we're just so grateful that you're here and ready to dive in with us. Thank you.